Good afternoon, friends. I think we're waiting. How's everybody? Good. We're waiting for the Zoom signal. Can you hear us? Sure, happy to talk. There we go. Is that better? Great. Okay, we're live. So I want to welcome everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the New York City Bahá'í Center on this beautiful Saturday afternoon. And of course, a warm welcome to everyone on Zoom. Wonderful to have you. I don't know where the camera is, but we'll wave at the ether and say thank you all for being here. Today is a momentous, once-in-a-lifetime occasion as we commemorate the 100th anniversary of the passing of Abdu'l-Bahá, the eldest son of Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of the Baha'i faith. And we celebrate his life and tireless devotion to a message of love and unity. My name is Darius, and this is Maria Meredith, and we are your Emcees today and are excited to celebrate this special occasion with all of you.
I also want to personally extend a warm welcome. Darius just introduced me as Maria. The name hasn't changed. And during this important time, I just kind of like to remind us of what's been happening in the world. We've had 1 year where we've been really focusing and preparing ourselves for today, this special event. We've been taking this opportunity to learn more about who Abdu'l-Bahá is, what his role is in the world, to ourselves. We've been doing a lot of personal deepening. We've been doing our best to try and incorporate his life, his humility, his sacrifice, his service, his joy, and we've been trying to incorporate that into our own lives. And so with this culminating event, we don't end it, but we also take a moment to just sit back and reflect to make sure we're continuing to do and strive to be what he was and things like that. Just to let you all know, today is day 2 of a series of happenings over this weekend. There was something that happened yesterday. There will be an event tomorrow as well. So the fun continues after today. And Darius will give you a little bit more information about the faith in Baha'u'llah.
Thank you, Maria. So the sacred revelation identified with Baha'u'llah upholds uncompromisingly the eternal truths enshrined in the religious dispensations gone before it. It recognizes the divine origin of their authors, including figures like Abraham, Moses, Buddha, Jesus, and Muhammad, among others. This revelation reaffirms the common, unchangeable, and fundamental purpose animating all previous dispensations and reconciles their seemingly divergent claims and doctrines. Baha'u'llah unhesitatingly acknowledges his revelation to be but one link in the chain of continually progressive revelations, stretching to this moment and into the future. And he proclaims its readiness and ability to fuse the world's people into a universal fellowship. To be a Baha'i implies not only following these teachings of Baha'u'llah, but as seeing the entire history of humanity through the lens of a divinely ordained plan and as having direction. Humanity is engaged in a process of spiritual education that is leading all peoples towards love and unity. At the heart of Baha'u'llah's revelation is a fundamental spiritual principle, the principle of the oneness of humanity. Every soul is born with spiritual capacity and can reflect the light of God, every soul. This spiritual truth has deep social ramifications for our time. Baha'is believe this truth is the medicine needed to heal the ills afflicting humanity.
I'm just taken aback. It's so beautiful. At Baha'u'llah's passing, many people in the faith were a little bit confused as to what to do, who to turn to, where to go. Some people already had insight and they kind of had an idea that Abdu'l-Bahá would be the one to turn to. But in Baha'u'llah's will and testament, he explicitly said, this is the one that you turn to. This is the person, Abdu'l-Bahá, my son. And in doing that, he set a precedent that hasn't happened in any of the history of religions. He helped our faith stay whole, which is the whole point, unity. There were no splinters. There were no people that had, I mean, if they were confused, that was on their own. But in Baha'u'llah's handwriting, he said, this is the one that you will turn to. This is the person that will lead you and guide you. And so with that, it helped ease a little bit the souls and the sadness of the friends at the passing of their beloved Baha'u'llah. One of the things I think that's really important is knowing that we have this person, this divine, beautiful spiritual being that we can turn to whenever we have disagreements, whenever we feel like we're at a loss. We have the writings of Baha'u'llah, but we also have the person of Abdu'l-Baha to turn to. And thank goodness we can look at his examples. There are stories of when he came to America, even all around the world, that we can say, okay, during this difficult time, this is what he did. And so this is one of the beautiful things I feel personally, why I'm really glad that this is a time we've been able to focus and narrow in on what Abdu'l-Baha has brought to us. As the center of the covenant, he brings inspiration and hope. He's an example of the teachings. He's a font of guidance to the community. And with that, I mean, what more can we say or do? We have our role model. In 1910, Abdu'l-Baha was freed from prison. As many of you all know, Baha'u'llah and Abdu'l-Baha and the Holy Family, they were prisoners their whole life. But in 1910, when Abdu'l-Baha was finally released, he didn't take time to sit and reflect and say thank you. He immediately said, I must continue to spread the message of Baha'u'llah. And so with that, he came westward. He went to Egypt. He went to a number of countries in Europe. And as we know, he came to the United States and Canada. And he spent a lot of time here in New York to share the message of Baha'u'llah.
Of the 239 days that Abdu'l-Baha spent in the United States, he spent more time in New York City than any other location. He spoke at churches and synagogues, invited by the clergy to share the message. He spoke to civic organizations, to theosophical societies. He spoke to the NAACP and to charity organizations. Through his tireless efforts, his travels and the meetings he hosted, his unending flow of letters and messages to people all over the world, and his welcome embrace of all who visited him, he formed a deep connection to the hearts of all he came into contact with. And at 1 a.m. on November 28, 1921, in the Holy Land, Abdu'l-Baha's soul departed from this world and ascended into the spiritual realms. A century has now elapsed since the noble spirit of Abdu'l-Baha ascended to his earthly home. His birth had coincided with the dawn of the faith's heroic age, and his passing signaled the setting of the sun upon its final epoch. In every respect, Abdu'l-Baha's example is central to Baha'i identity. Every Baha'i may turn to him to understand better how to diffuse the light of the message of love and unity. And his life is a model to follow as we seek to awaken spiritual susceptibilities in our neighborhoods, within our families, and with all of those we encounter. In commemoration of the 100 years since his ascension, our programs this weekend honor his life, his legacy, and his lasting influence.
So with that, we're going to get officially started. So just to give you a breakdown of what's going to happen, we will start, as always, to kind of get our souls a little bit of a nice tasty treat and get us all settled in. We're going to start with 2 prayers, one by Dominique and one by Nika. Then afterwards, we will have a beautiful artistic presentation related to Abdu'l-Baha's life. There will be 2 artistic presentations. And then for the main event, we will see a film that is related to Abdu'l-Baha called The Exemplar. And if you did not know, it has been especially prepared and released for this time and for this event. So without further ado, we will get started.
At all times do I speak of you and call you to mind. I pray unto the Lord, and with tears I implore him to rain down all these blessings upon you and gladden your hearts and make blissful your souls, and grant you exceeding joy and heavenly delights, and heavenly delights. At all times do I speak of you and call you to mind. I pray unto the Lord, and with tears I implore him to rain down all these blessings upon you and gladden your hearts and make blissful your souls and grant you exceeding joy and heavenly delights, and heavenly delights. O thou compassionate Lord, thou who art generous and able, we are servants of thine, sheltered beneath thy providence. Cast thy glance of favor upon us, give light to our eyes, hearing to our ears, and understanding and love to our hearts. Render our souls joyous and happy through thy glad tidings. O Lord, point out to us the pathway of thy kingdom and resuscitate all of us through the breath of thy Holy Spirit. Bestow upon us life everlasting and confer upon us never-ending honor. Unify mankind and illumine the world of humanity. May we all follow thy pathway, long for thy good pleasure, and seek the mysteries of thy kingdom. O God, unite us and connect our hearts with thy indissoluble bond. Verily, thou art the giver, thou art the kind one, and thou art the Almighty. Abdu'l-Baha.
So for our first artistic, can you all hear me? I'm sorry. For our first artistic contribution to today's event, we will have a beautiful presentation, a piano presentation by our wonderful Dottie Longo, and she will be playing a piece by Chopin.
this story is entitled The Black Rose. And many of you may have heard the version from Howard Kobe Ives, Portals to Freedom. And I've sort of changed it a little bit. Okay. Mrs. Kenny, who lived on the Upper West Side in New York City, was traveling with Abdu'l-Baha and several American and Persian Baha'is on the train, when a number of loud boys boarded the train. Some called Abdu'l-Baha names and threw sticks at him. Mrs. Kenny told the boys that Abdu'l-Baha was a holy man who was in prison for many years because of his love for truth, justice, and the oneness of humankind. She told the boys that they were on their way to the Baha'i mission, where Abdu'l-Baha would speak to the poor. The boys asked, "Can we go with you?" Mrs. Kenny said, "No, but please come to my house on Sunday to meet this holy man." And she gave them her address. On Sunday, a large group of boys arrived at her home, dressed in their Sunday best. Among the last boy to enter the room was a Black boy, about 13 years old. He was quite dark, and being the only boy of his race among them, he eventually feared that he may not be welcomed. When Abdu'l-Baha saw him, his face was illumined with light, and a heavenly smile was on Abdu'l-Baha's face. Abdu'l-Baha raised his hand and exclaimed in a loud voice so that all could hear that here was a black rose, that here was a black rose. The room fell into instant silence. The little Black boy's face illumined with happiness and love, a kind of love hardly of this world. The other boys looked at the Black boy with new eyes. I venture to say that this little Black boy had been called a Black this or that, or many things, but never before had this little Black boy been called a Black rose. Thank you.
Can we give another round of applause to Clyde Herring and Dottie Longo for their beautiful performances. So as we set up, I just want to give you all a bit of an introduction about the main reason why we're here tonight, the centerpiece of this program. This film, Exemplar, it's been commissioned by the Baha'i World Center, especially for this year, and it focuses on the life of Abdu'l-Baha. This movie follows the life of Abdu'l-Baha and the profound effect that he has had on people, both in the past and current day. The film reflects a few of the universal principles embodied, in both word and deed by Abdu'l-Baha. Principles that animate a global movement of individuals, communities, and institutions striving to emulate his example in service to humanity.
So special to, yeah, thank you. So beautifully scored and edited, and amazing to see footage of Abdu'l-Baha in America. Extremely special. So we, Here we are. It's a full century since Abdu'l-Bahá's passing, and the words and actions of a man lovingly referred to as the Master continue to inspire people all around the world to work towards the betterment of their communities. We hope that the program today has also planted a seed of inspiration in each of your hearts to devote yourselves and your lives to service, to the service of humanity, and to loving each other and to uniting people under this message.
Go first. We welcome you all to come back tomorrow for the third film in this series. Tomorrow, there will be a test screening for those only attending in person at the center, and it's called Steadfast. It's the first film about the life of Thornton Chase, who was the first American Baha'i. And for those that will be joining online, it will just be another viewing of the film that we just saw, Exemplar. We were going to end this program. I'm just still kind of processing everything. That the video, I'd never seen all of that footage, so I'm just kind of trying not to cry while I speak. We will end our program with a closing prayer. We thank you all for coming out and joining us. We hope your hearts are filled and nourished and this warmth, and take it all back and share with others what we learned and felt today. Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
He is the all-glorious, O God, my God, lowly and tearful. I raise my suppliant hands to thee and cover my face in the dust of that threshold of thine, exalted above the knowledge of the learned and the praise of all that glorify thee. Graciously look upon thy servant, humble and lowly at thy door, with the glances of the eye of thy mercy, and immerse him in the ocean of thine eternal grace. Lord, he is poor and lowly, and a servant of thine, enthralled and imploring thee, captive in thy hands, prayly and fervently to thee, trust in thee, before thy face, calling to thee and beseeching thee, saying, O Lord, my Lord, give me thy grace to serve thy loved ones, strengthen me in the servitude to thee. Illumine my brow with the light of adoration in thy court of holiness and of prayer to thy kingdom of grandeur. Help me to be selfless and the heavenly entrance of thy gate, and to aid me to be detached from all things within thy holy precincts. Lord, give me to drink from the chalice of thy selflessness. With its robe clothe me, and in its ocean immerse me. Make me as dust in thy pathway of thy loved ones, and grant that I may offer up my soul for the earth ennobled by the footsteps of thy chosen ones of thy path. O Lord, glory in the highest. With this prayer doth thy servant call thee at downtide and in the night season. Fulfill his heart's desire, O Lord. Illumine his heart, gladden his bosom, kindle his light, that he may serve thy cause and thy servants. Thou art the bestower, the pitiful, the most bountiful, the gracious, the merciful, the compassionate. Abdu'l-Bahá. Thank you.
That concludes our program. Thank you, friends.